Okay, let's dive right in. The 20th century, it didn't just change the Middle East. It turned it completely on its head. More than pretty much any other time in its incredibly long history, this was a century that saw an empire collapse, new nations created, and conflicts that ended up drawing the very map we still look at today.
But that kind of begs a fundamental question, doesn't it? I mean, how exactly is a modern nation born? Does it come from war? Is it born from powerful ideas? Or is it something that's just imposed on people from the outside?
Well, for the modern Arab world, the whole story really kicks off with an ending. The end of a huge ancient empire that had defined that part of the world for centuries.
So, let's get into our first section, an empire falls, and how a whole region was redefined by colonial powers. See, at the end of World War I, the Ottoman Empire, which had been around for 600 years, just collapsed. This left a massive power vacuum, and European colonial powers rushed in to completely redraw the map of the region.
And the speed of all this is just staggering. We're talking about a few short decades where centuries of political reality were just wiped off the board. Entirely new countries were created, with borders drawn not by the people who actually lived there, but by men in suits in Europe.
This created this huge contrast. The region went from being this one large, multi-ethnic empire to a collection of separate states, often with a foreign power pulling the strings. And even after they got their formal independence after World War II, it kicked off a debate that, honestly, is still going on today. Was it real independence, or was it just a new kind of foreign influence over their politics and their economies?
Okay, so that brings us to our second big idea, forging a new identity. This was all about the search for an authentic, indigenous future. Because that whole experience, it sparked a huge reaction. After the Second World War, a new generation of leaders and thinkers started to turn away from the European models to find an identity that was rooted in their own shared culture.
So, you might be asking, what could possibly unite all these newly divided states? Well, the Arabic language was this incredibly powerful unifying thread. Even with all the different local dialects, that shared root of classical Arabic, which was reinforced through religion, through the media, and through education, it created this real, palpable sense of a single, connected Arab world.
And then came a moment that would change everything. The creation of the State of Israel in 1948 and the displacement of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians became this incredibly powerful, unifying issue. It poured fuel on the fire of resentment toward the Western powers who'd drawn those borders in the first place, and it became a central, emotional rallying cry for this emerging Arab identity.
And right out of this search for identity, this shared sense of grievance, a really powerful new ideology was born, the grand vision of Pan-Arabism. This brings us to Section 3, the Pan-Arab Dream.
So what exactly is Pan-Arabism? Well, you can think of it as a direct answer to colonialism. It was the idea that all people who shared an Arab culture and language should unite into a single political force. The idea was to literally erase those artificial borders drawn by outsiders, to reclaim their dignity and get true independence.
And this thing didn't just appear out of nowhere, It grew. It started as an idea bandied about by intellectuals. Then it got a formal political body, the Arab League, in 1945. And from there, it just exploded into a genuine mass movement that completely caught fire across the entire region.
And if this dream had a face, it was this guy. Egypt's incredibly charismatic president, Gamal Abdel Nasser. He's the one who took Pan-Arabism from being this elite idea and turned it into a powerful political force that millions of ordinary people connected with. For a while there, it really felt like the dream of unity was actually within reach. All right, so the dream is powerful, it's gaining momentum, but like any big dream, it was about to run headfirst into some very harsh realities. This leads us to Section 4, a dream challenged, and the forces that fractured that unity.
If there was one single moment that dealt a devastating blow to the Pan-Arab dream, it was 1967. The absolutely stunning defeat of Arab armies by Israel in the Six-Day War. That wasn't just a military loss. No, it was this deep, psychological blow that completely shattered the movement's credibility.
After '67, you could really start to see the cracks forming. On top of the military defeat and the ongoing unresolved issue of the Palestinians, a powerful alternative idea started bubbling up: political Islam. This ideology argued that identity and how you govern should be rooted in religious principles, not this secular nationalism.
And in the end, the individual national interests of each state often just prove stronger than the call for some grand pan-Arab unity.
So where does all of that leave us? Well, that brings us to our final section, an unfinished story. Because the story of the 20th century in the Arab world is exactly that. It's unfinished, with a legacy that is absolutely still shaping the region today.
Because here's the thing, those core issues that defined the entire last century, they haven't gone away. The legacy of those contested colonial borders, the debate over what real independence from foreign influence looks like, and that ongoing search for unifying identity, they are still right at the very heart of politics in the region.
And that really brings us to our final question, doesn't it? Here we are, more than a century after the Ottoman Empire fell, and the fundamental challenges of that era, questions of identity, borders, and sovereignty, are still so incredibly relevant. What we've explored here is the first chapter. The big question now is, what will the next one hold?